So before we talk about the EcoTools, we need to understand what the Eplan API is. So Eplan API is a program interface that allows us to create applications or programs that perform tasks in Eplan or that talks to Eplan. And just as a quick note, Eplan does not sell you or offer you APIs. We at Ecodesign, we create and sell the APIs, such as EcoTools and so on. Anyway, the purpose of the API is to reduce the amount of time that we spend on manual work, and it also allows us to perform tasks that you can't easily do in Eplan normally, or at least not yet. So like a good example is, imagine you have a task that requires a lot of manual work that might take you 10 minutes. Whereas if you had an API, you could just click a button and it would do that in a few seconds. If you're interested in using an API, it requires an API runtime license to use it. However, if you want to create your own API, it requires the API extension license, and that's much more expensive. And the APIs come in the form of a DLL file that you have to load into Eplan, and you'll get your own toolbar. So here at Ecodesign, we sell 3 sets of APIs. The first one that we sell is the EcoTools. And this is a wide collection of APIs that does many different tasks. And you'll see what this contains in 2 slides over. The next API we offer is the ESG. This is our flagship API. And this is a schematic generator. So this will generate an entire project using macros from an Excel workbook. The newest API we've came out with is the PLG. So like the schematic generator, the PLG is a Pro panel or 3D panel generator. It allows you to generate 3D panels from an Excel workbook, as well as other miscellaneous programs that allow you to modify, like mounting points, 3D macros. And the last one that the last one is what we don't sell, it's ongoing development, is the internal API. And what the internal is it's apps or programs that have yet to be added to the EcoTools. So you'll see in the next slide our workflow. So the way we decide to add anything to EcoTools is with this cycle. So first, the client will come to us with a feature. They might say, hey, can you make an API that does X and Y? And then we would have to make a judgment. Like, for example, okay, if this feature, if this idea is too specific or too narrow, we don't see a lot of people using it, then it will require paid development. And if we go ahead with that, then we will develop that API to their specifications. It'll be tailor-made to their requirements. However, if their request is a pretty good request, if it's widely utilizable, like if we see multiple people using it, then we would develop this free of charge, and we would put it under the internal API, and we will keep working on it. Then once we've tested it, we're happy with it, we will push it to the next EcoTools release version. So then everyone who has EcoTools will have access to that API feature. And then lastly, if we at Ecodesign come up with an idea, we'll also add it to the internal API as well. So now I just want to go over everything that's under EcoTools. So the first big app that we have under EcoTools is the Revision Cloud. And this allows us to create revisions or cloud revisions on a schematic page. And then once we create the cloud revisions, we can give it descriptions, and we can use those descriptions to create a revision overview page of all the revisions in your project. The next major app is the macro management. And what this does is that it allows us to manage our placeholders and our macro boxes en masse. Like we can assign variables to placeholders across multiple pages, name all of our window macros en masse, as well as to remove macro boxes and placeholders that are already placed on the page. We have some text tools, and this allows us to edit graphical texts on a page, which you can't normally do in Eplan, as well as creating our own table and placing watermarks on the page. Next, we have a project checker. So I know Eplan already comes with a project checker. However, the project checker we made for EcoTools is a lot more user-friendly, it's less overwhelming, and you'll see the differences when we do the demo. And we also just have a lot of miscellaneous functions that don't exactly fit a single category, but they can range from hiding, turning layers on and off on the page, creating hatch patterns, creating parts, and much more. So we'll also be taking a look behind the curtain, and you get to see what APIs we have under the internal API and what's in ongoing development. So some of the stuff that we do have is, for example, how to quickly export PDFs and DWGs in the right place. We also have a program to back up your Eplan project with dates and initials. We have an app that lets you delete everything in a selection across multiple pages. And we also have an app that allows you to take an existing report that you generated and export it to Excel without going through the export labeling, or without creating a scheme under export labeling, and we have more. Of course, we'll be doing a live demo of all of this. So demo time. Okay. So when you load EcoTools for the first time, you will see this ribbon tab up here with all these icons. So starting from Revision Cloud, and it's the cloud settings. So I'm going to draw a rectangle quickly. I'll show you how it works. So let's say I want to update. Let's say this conveyor is a new addition to my project, and I want to cloud this conveyor. So what I can do, draw the rectangle, select the box, and then go Cloud Settings. And this pop-up is going to allow me to select settings for my cloud. So at the moment, it's just two settings. What's my pattern length and what's my color? So I can pick a color. When I'm happy with this selection, I can simply draw the cloud. And then I can add my revision triangle. Now, a big difference between this version of the revision cloud compared to last year's is if I double click this text, this is now a comment. And that's important because since it's a comment, I can now add a description of what it is that I've changed. So I'll do that now. I'll go conveyor size does not match circuit breaker. It can be anything, you just put it under this reply text. The next big change is with the repeat cloud. So as I've showed you before, the old way of creating a revision cloud is you would draw the rectangle, placing the page. Well, there's a new way of doing it, and that new way is I simply have to click on repeat cloud, and it brings the cloud onto my cursor automatically. So I don't have to select an existing object. I make one from scratch. And it also inserts the triangle. And then I can repeat the process. I can change the revision up here or give it a be more specific. And then I can type in the description. Check the VSD connections. And I've got my revisions on the page. However, at the moment, I can't see these descriptions. So what I can do is I can generate a revision overview page where I'll see all of my revisions across the entire project. So I'll do that now. I'm going to go revision overview, click on this button. And if I just zoom in so you guys can see, it's asking me to enter the page name. You know, where's this revision overview page going to be? So I'm going to say page 90. So before this page, it's going to find all these revisions. And if I go to the page, yep, you can see these are the revisions I have on the page. It tells me what page they're on, and it gives me the description that I entered, you know, in the comments. It also tells me who made this revision, as well as what date this was created on. So instead of you having to find this out manually, let the API do it for you. If you want to remove those revisions, maybe you're done showing them. That's also easy. You can just select the page or multiple pages that they're on. And then you just click on this remove revisions button. Okay. And voila, they're gone. The next big topic I want to talk about is the macro management. So if I go into my macro project, you can see I've got all of these window macros here. So first, I want to create these macros from scratch. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all these pages, and I'm just going to go remove the macro box. And it's going to remove all the macro boxes and the placeholders. Yes, I do. And they're gone. So we're starting from scratch. And then next, I'm going to have to insert a macro box and a placeholder. I'm just going to do this for the first page only. And I'll do insert the placeholder. So again, I'm just creating an empty macro box and an empty placeholder. Next, I want to copy this across every other page below. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and use the duplicate objects. I'll do this in detail later, but I'm just going to quickly copy this over. So I'm just pasting this, duplicating this across every other page. So if you have a look, now every macro here has a macro box and a placeholder, and both of these are empty. So no name specified, no variables specified. So now what I can do is once I have these devices with the variable written in the DTs and on the page, I can select all my pages. And then I can click here, adopt variables. And what this is going to do is going to scan the schematic and then put all these variables in the placeholder. Okay, done. That's how long it took. So if I go to each individual placeholder, you can see it picked it up from the page and it added this in. Now, if you didn't have the EcoTools, what you would have to do is you would have to go to each placeholder, right click, and go adopt variables. That will be the slow way of doing it. and you would have to do this, however many macros you have. But with the EcoTools, you can do this all in one go, in one click. So once we've got a placeholder done, we also need to give each window macro its name. And the method we like to do is, I like to have the macro name inside this page description. So if I go properties, I want to take what's in here and copy this value, put it in the macro box. And to do that, we need this button up here, adopt macro name. So if I click on this, let me zoom in for you. I've got the macro path up here. It can be a fixed text, it can be anything. And then I've got each macro name from the page description, and I just go adopt. Now to do a sanity check, I'm going to double click the macro box, and you can see demo isolator feedback. If I go to a different one, like maybe DO lamp stop, you can see same thing, demo, DO lamp stop. All of these macro names have been brought in with the click of one button, or two in this case. It just makes this just makes creating macros a lot easier than if you didn't have this and you had to do it the manual way. Okay, so back to the schematic project, I want to talk about these text tools. Go to the next page. So something that you can't do in base Eplan yet, at least, is you can't export these texts to Excel and modify them. So let's say I want this to be page 1, page 2, page 3, and so on. So what I can do, highlight these texts, and then go edit text externally. And you can see just from this first box, I can also modify wire numbers, or to use Eplan terminology, connection definition points. I can also specify a secondary language if you're doing a project. So this is useful if you have a project where you're displaying two languages. And I'm just going to export everything. And you can see it's in an Excel format. It gives you what page this is on. You can export across multiple pages, as well as an X and a Y position. So this is just so you can do some sanity checks. Drag it down, and then I close it. And you can see it brings all of this in nice and easy. And as I've said before, this also works on wire numbers or cable cores in this case. So I'm going to export all of this, and I want to change it. So my cable core is going to be over here. And I'm going to drag this down. So let's have it increments. And here, this is where I type in my wire number. So I'm going to type in wire number 1, just keep it basic. I'm going to drag this down. When I'm happy, I simply close it. And you can see here, it allowed me to manually set the wire numbers for each of these connections. The next text tool that we have is the create watermark. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on the button. And now we can choose what page this is going to go on. So I'll have it just go to the current page. You can choose what it's going to say. I'm going to say for review. Pick a size, and I'll just generate it. And you can see here, it placed it on the page. So if I go OK, you can see this is what it looks like, a watermark. You can also delete it if you want. You can just go back, and you can go remove. It gets rid of it. And then lastly is the create table. So what you can do, you can create a graphical table with text inside it. You can resize. You can change each column, the width of each column, the row height. You can change number of rows. So what I'm going to do, I've got some generic text like this, some data here. I'm going to copy this from the Excel. And I'm going to paste it in here. And then I want to get rid of the last 2 rows. So let's make that 3 rows. You can also resize the table up here, but I'm happy with what I have. I'm just going to go create a table. And you can see I've got my table here, and now I can drag it up onto the page, like so. The next thing I want to talk about are these project tools up here. So like I said in the slides, Eplan does have a project checker. And you can find that project checker under tools, and then this one, check. The downside of using the project checker is it's not very user-friendly. And sometimes it'll give you a lot of errors, and it can be a bit overwhelming. And some of these errors, they can be like false positives. So the one that we did is, if I go project checker, this one's a bit simpler. It's a bit easier to read, easier to look at. And the kinds of errors that it's looking for is this. It's looking for devices with a missing part number. So for example, my neutral bar, north bar, they're missing. It tells you where they are as well. It's also looking for wire numbers that don't have a wire. Sorry, it's looking for connection definition points without a wire number, or with these generic question marks. It's looking for interruption points that aren't going anywhere. They're missing a cross-reference, so they're not linking. It's looking for devices where you haven't specified a mounting site. So you haven't told it, is it in the field or in the MCC? And those are the things that it's looking for. Just, small, useful things to help you. And also the project checker is a lot faster compared to the one that we released last year, because I improved the efficiency and speed of it. The next tool is the pop-up, the no pop-ups. So what this is I'm sure you guys have seen this before. So sometimes when you open up Eplan and you already have a project previously opened, you might get these 2 pop-ups saying, the master of the project is not up to date. Do you want to update it? And then if you click yes or no, you would get the second pop-up saying stored parts. They're not up to date. Do you want to update this? From experience, I've seen clients sometimes they would have 4 projects open, and then they would get 8 pop-ups. And you don't want to have 8 pop-ups. You don't want to have to click through 8 pop-ups just to open up your Eplan, right? So to turn these pop-ups off, what I've made is this button here. And all it's doing is it's scanning through every project that you have opened already in your navigator. And it's just turning off that pop-up alert. So every time you open up Eplan, you won't get these 2 popping up error. And that's what it does. Okay. Next, I want to talk about the miscellaneous functions that we have. So if I go to the next page, let's say, for example, these last 2 motors. So you can see these last 2 motors are in a hazard zone, hazard motor 1 and 2, and these 2 motors aren't. So I want to draw something. I want to draw like a box to visually indicate that they're in the hazard zone. And I don't want to make it a solid color, because if I make it a solid color, it will hide the wires. You can see making a solid color hides these wires, and we don't want to do that. So instead, what we're going to do is this create hatch pattern. And you can choose to make it a rectangle or a polygon. You can do something like this. Make it any shape you want. But I've got the shape that I want. I select the object and I go create hatch pattern. And now I've got some options. I can choose a style, any style that I want. Personally, I like the default one. Looks nicer. I can choose the spacing 4, 8, 16. I'll stick with 8. I can add a little note here. Let's go hazard zone. And also choose which color I want. So this is a hazard zone. I'm going to make it, let's say, orange. Once I'm happy with this, I'm just going to go fill pattern. And we just wait a bit. Yep, you can see here, it gave me my dashed pattern. If you're not happy with where this text is placed, you can move it up and down, like so. Or you can even make it bigger with the scale function, if you want to. And now it's a bit easier to read that this is a hazard zone rather than relying on this small text here. Anyway, the next thing I want to talk about is duplicate objects. So you would have seen me do this in the macro project, but I'll just go over in a bit more detail. So let's say I have a text that I want to copy across multiple pages. So let's say I've got this copyright Ecodesign. I want this to be, let's say, on the first few pages as well. Make it a bit bigger. So what I can do is I can select anything I want to copy. So this could be graphical objects. It can be circuit breakers, anything. You can copy anything. I select what I want to copy, click on the button. And now I have to choose where do I want to place them, which pages. So in this case, I just want to place it on these pages before. I'll just place it, whoops. Yep, hold shift. Place on these previous pages. If I go duplicate, you can see it's been duplicated. So that's what it does. And that's what I did to get the macro box duplicated. The next button is the page layer management. And this is on and off, or turning certain objects on and off. So let's say I've got my cable routing layout, like what you see here. I got my 4 Profinet buses. And for whatever reason, I want to hide Profinet bus K. And the way to hide it is I just need to turn off any line that's on the K layer. So to do that, I'm going to go click on the button. And then you can see here, these are all the layers present on the page. So I want to turn off layer K. I select it. It's going to toggle it. And then if I close it, you can see layer K is invisible. I turned it off. Well, I've made it invisible. I didn't, get rid of it. If I ever change my mind, I just click the button again and turn it back on. If you go selection mode, you can do this in duplicates. You can do multiple at once, but I'm happy with what I have, so I'll pass. The next button I want to talk about is the swap page numbers. And this does exactly as it says it does. You select 2 pages. So 2 pages like so in your navigator. Click the button and you swap them around like this. Next button, cable summary. So what this does is it creates a summarized parts list, but for cables only. And the reason why I've made this is, let me show you. Okay, so this is a summary of, or summarized all the cable parts in this project. And if I'm going to go in detail a bit. So let's go from top to bottom. So the first 2 cables that I have, these are hypothetical part numbers, right? They're not like proper manufacturing part numbers. And because they're hypothetical part numbers, they're going to have a total length and they're not going to have a quantity because this would be coming from a cable drum. And as well as having a total length, they also have the longest length. So for example, I can see that in my first cable, total length, longest length, both 40, meaning I only have one of this type of cable. The second one, the individual cable with the longest length is 12 meters. So one cable is going to be 12 meters, the rest will be shorter than that. And I've got 32 meters in total. Now, the third and fourth cable, these are IFM cables with a M8 plug in this case. Therefore, they will have a fixed length. And if they have a fixed length, therefore, they will come in quantities. So you can see I have a quantity of 8 of these cables. 8 cables, and each one has a length of 5 meters. So 8 times 5, do the math. You get 40 meters in total of this cable. Same with the one below, 5 and 3, 15. You can also use this export to do some debugging. So if I look at my 5th cable, I can see my total length and long length are both 0, meaning I forgot to add in those cable lengths. So I need to go back to my project and add those cable lengths and fix it. And yeah, so that's a little bit of how this cable export button works. So I'm just going to close this. You can save it if you want. The next one you have is generate parts. And what this does is, what generate part does is that it creates a part in your parts database. Now, some of you are thinking, hold on, why do I need this generate part? I can simply go to my parts database. I have the data portal right here. And then I can import a part from the data portal. Well, sometimes you can't find the part that you want in your data portal. And so the other way in base Eplan will be to just right-click under which category you want, and then click on new when it shows up. Yeah, you can right-click a category and then go new, and then you can create your own new part from scratch. However, this method is quite slow, and it also doesn't give you the function templates that you want. So the alternative to doing it this way is, let's say I want to create a custom conveyor. This is my custom conveyor part. I want to put this part in my parts database. So what I can do, select it, click on generate parts. And let me just zoom in for you guys. I can give it a part number. Custom conveyor. Give it a manufacturer. If you don't know the name, use the drop down. It's got everything. For the group, which category you're going to choose. If you don't know, you can always do this later. but I prefer to just do it undefined until I decide. And then once I have all of this, I go generate parts. And now I can take a look at the part I generated. So I'm just going to insert that part onto on the page below. No, sorry, no. I go Shift Insert. There we go. So if I go to undefined, local, and there's that custom conveyor I just made. And there's two very big reasons why you should do it, why this way is better than the default way. The first reason is that it creates a macro for what you selected. It creates a macro and links it. You can see here. The second reason is that it creates the function templates for you. So if I go to this tab, if I expand this, you can see the black box, device connection points, all of that is created for you. So you don't have to make that manually, from scratch. That being said, this is not a click and you're done type of button, because you still need to give this a description of what this part is. So you can still go to part is description 1, give it some technical, give it some description. But again, it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Once I'm happy with this, I go OK. And you can see I can now bring it, and I can click, place it on the page. And I've got my part number. If I go to parts, it's right there. Again, this button just makes creating parts much, much easier than the default way. The last button under EcoTools is the assign main function. So let's say I've made a 50 core cable across multiple pages. So on one page, maybe I have core 17 to 32, 33, 48, and then 1 to 16 on another page. Sometimes you run into the problem of you have this cable, or multiple instances of this cable are all set to main function, let's say. And the problem with having multiple main functions is that you will get duplicate parts. So this will have a part number, and this will have a part number. In this case, I only want one main function, so I have one main part number. And what the assign main function does is you select your main cable and you click assign. And now only this will have the part number up here with main function ticked. If I go to the other one, you can see main function is unticked, no part tab, no duplicate part number. So yeah, those are all of the EcoTools programs that we have available in this current release. Now I want to pull back the curtain, and I want to show you what we have in development under the internal API. So if I go to the internal tab, this is what we have so far that I'm going to show you. So I'll start from, so the first one I'm going to go over is these export/backup tools. The first one I'm going to talk about is the quick backup. So when you back up a project by default, it'll just bring in the project name. And usually at Ecodesign, what we like to do is we like to type in the date and then our initials. But that's all. But that's manual work. So with this button here, I've made it so that it reads the backup directory that you already have, and then it will add today's date as well as your initials automatically, so you don't have to type this out. So let me show you how it works. And let me show you where I backed up this project. So right here, you can see it brings in the date and initials. So company policy at Ecodesign is we make backups of our projects daily. So you can imagine this will save us a lot of typing. So that's why we have it. The next button is Quick PDF. So before I show you how this works, there's just something we need to go over. So whenever we do a project for a client, maybe you guys have something similar, but we have a project structure, or each project folder has its own structure. So this is Ecodesign conventions, but so a.drawings, this is where we store the Eplan files or the Eplan backup projects. The documents folder, this is where we store like IO lists, photos, engineering workbooks, and so on. And any PDF we want to send out to the client is going to be saved under issued documents. So at the moment, I have nothing in here. So now what the export PDF or the quick PDF does is that it reads this drawings folder, or it reads where the project is saved, or in this case, under the drawings folder, and it's going to take that path and then do a text find and replace, and then place my PDF under issued documents. So at the moment, nothing's here. If I select my project, go quick PDF. If I zoom in for you, you can see it's looking for the export location. In this case, my project's backup is saved under drawings. It's going to do a find and replace. And that's where it's going to save the PDF. Oops, let me zoom out. And you can see it saved my PDF under issued documents. If I didn't have this, if I didn't have this tool, what I would have to do instead is I would save that PDF in like a generic PDF folder. I would then have to do a cut and navigate to where the issue documents is and then paste it there. And that could be quite tedious to do. But with the quick PDF tool, I can do it in a matter of seconds. It just saves me some time. The next one is for exporting DWGs. And the reason why I have this button is so I can export images along with the DWG drawings. So let me show you how it works. I select the project, click the button. It's going to ask for an export location. In this case, a folder on my desktop, and the scheme. So I'm just going to use the default settings scheme. If I go export DWG, and this is what it did. So under my Eplan export, you can see it brought in the two JPG or two pictures. So if I didn't use the export DWG, if I used the base Eplan one, these two pictures wouldn't show up. And that is a big deal because I've had this problem before where sometimes if you send DWG files over to another client, sometimes they don't get these pictures showing up. So you would have to manually drag them in. So again, it's just there to save you time. Okay. Now onto the miscellaneous. Next one I want to go over is the revision changer. So the revision changer allows us to update these revisions down here. And at the moment, this is specific to the Ecodesign configuration. Of course, we are happy to share how we do it with you. But anyway, I select the project, revision changer. It's going to bring this up. So let's just do this from scratch. I'm going to say A1. My revision's A1. It's going to be today's dates. Webinar 5, let's say. And my initials. And you can see when I click update, it's going to change this. Okay, done. And it did it across every single page that I've selected. Of course, you could go right click in properties and then do it from here. Or you could go file, export properties, external editing, do it from there. But setting that up requires a lot of work. Sometimes it can be a bit messy. This is just a much nicer, cleaner, simpler alternative to doing it the manual way. The next button is the mass delete. So mass delete, this is the inverse of the duplicate objects. Instead of copying objects across multiple pages, you're doing the opposite. You're deleting them across multiple pages. So let's say that I've got this junction box here and I want to get rid of it. You know, plans have changed. I don't want to see this junction box anymore. It's gone. Instead of going across each page, selecting it, delete, doing it over and over, I'm just going to click on the button, select my deletion area, and then select which pages I want to remove it from, which is at the moment just my PLC pages. And you can see it's gone on every PLC page. No more junction box. So again, just saves you time when it comes to deleting across multiple pages. Next one I want to talk about is the report to Excel. So sometimes you will create a parts list or a unique parts list with unique property columns, and you want to get this quickly into an Excel format. Now, of course, you could go to File, Export Manufacturing, and you could create a new scheme, you know, set up all the columns correctly, create a template. But that can be a bit too time consuming. Sometimes you just want to do it nice and fast and correct. So with this tool, I can select both of these report pages. And then I'll go report to Excel. And it's going to copy everything across both pages. And then just put it in Excel straight away. And we'll just wait a bit. Okay. And then you can see here everything. So exactly as what I have in Eplan, exact copy. This is still in development, so we're still, you know, trying to find a way to get these headings in here. But other than that, it's working pretty good, pretty well. So yeah, we're just trying to get these headings in. So still in development. And then the last one under internal is the PLC to black box. So let's say you've got a PLC, let's say you've got a VSD. So sometimes when you import a VSD from the data portal, or it might not be a VSD, might be soft SATA or something similar, it comes as a PLC box instead, which is what you don't want, because if your VSD is in the form of a PLC box, then this could muck up your PLC reports, for example, and you don't want that. So then you want something that can convert this into a black box nice and easy. However, now you could just go into here and just go into symbol and make it a black box here. But the downside of doing that is if you change it to a black box here, you miss out on all of these saved properties over here. And that's something that I don't want to miss out on anything here. So we've made this button PLC to black box because it does exactly that. It converts this to a black box without touching or changing any of these displayed properties. So if you've got a preset saved, it won't touch it. It'll keep it as is. Whereas if you change it manually via the symbol, it will reset to the default. But again, just to save you a bit of time. At the moment, this is still a work in development because it doesn't convert. So if I had any PLC pins like these, it'll still keep them as PLC pins. That's still in development. But for the main box, it's there. Okay, so yeah, in conclusion, I think you can see how just by using APIs, you can automate tasks in Eplan that you normally wouldn't be able to do, and it would also save you a lot of time, which saves you money.